I've spoken, I'd say, quite a bit about kind of the emotional roller coaster that is being a writer in going through that writing process. And at this point now, it feels like this is the easy part. This feels now much like, the very kind of lazy, relaxed part of the entire process. It's obviously not going to last necessarily, but we're now a bit on the down on a bit of that downslope simply because it's getting towards the end, right? As you get towards the end of this, you're hoping that things get a little bit easier, things get a little bit more manageable, and so for me, that's more or less where I'm at this point now. Is just kind of going through more of a bit of the busy work, a bit more of the just going through making sense, little corrections, fixing a few things here and there. I've mentioned, I think before as well, about sort of the frustration in going through this whole process of making several drafts of my novel, going through several times, when all an agent is ever going to base their interest in your story on is those first couple chapters. Obviously, everyone wants to have really strong chapters, but I always find it strange. I always go through this process and I always find it strange that I'm putting in so much effort and so much work into making these several passes on this novel, when it's the first 50 pages that's going to sell this thing. It's the first 50 pages that's going to catch their attention. Now, obviously, if they're interested in it, they're going to want to see the whole thing, which is why you want to have this done. I understand that. There's the rational, I guess, part of my mind that understands this, that gets this. But there's also a part of my mind that's like, man, you're spending so much time on something, and if an editor is not interested in those first 50 pages, well, you've done all this work to edit this novel for nothing. And it's that voice, that persistent voice that is always my challenge in this process. It's always the thing. I don't have a whole lot of negative people in my life. I don't have people that usually put me down. I have doubters and things like that, basically, but I pay them no attention at all. The one doubter, the one thing that gets to me is that voice. I hear it all the time. I hear it, and it's that persistent thing of, you could be doing a whole lot of work for no reason. This could be something that nobody ever reads. You're writing sections that no one may ever get to, simply because they're not as pulled in by those first few chapters. And it's that voice that always comes to me, and it's one I have to constantly contend with. And I think other people might think this way. Admittedly, I've never met a writer that actually does think this way. They've all kind of said, well, no, you want to do the whole thing, because if they're interested in your story, you want to have the whole thing done, which I get. But if there are other people that perhaps that have that kind of nagging voice, the sort of thing, the idea that you're doing this for no, you're sort of wasting your time. It's some sort of like Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill every day just to watch it collapse. The thing that might be important is that, yes, no one may ever see this part, right? There may be plenty of agents that never see this. My story might get rejected every single time, and the world never reads this story. Well, I put out the best product that I could. That's how I view it. I view it as, I put out an amazing story that I am proud of, regardless if anyone ever reads it. And that's honestly how I think you need to view this sort of thing. It's when you do things for other people, when you do things with the intention of other people seeing it, this voice tends, I think, to manifest in different ways. And if you can bring it back to yourself, if you can put the ownership back on yourself, that you're doing this because you owe you. Like, you owe yourself an amazing story, right? You owe yourself this fantastic work. Nobody else, nobody else owes it. You owe yourself. You don't owe it to anybody else. And if you can put it back on yourself, I think your standards go up. I think your personal standards will go up. And I think the worry that, yeah, I'm doing work that no one may never see will go away. Because, yeah, No one may ever see it, but you did it. You know within yourself that you pulled it off. And that's the thing that's kept me through this whole process. That's the thing that has, in a lot of these darker times in this process, the parts where I feel like maybe stopping, that's what's kind of kept me through it, is the idea that I'm doing this for me. Like, this is as selfishly as much for myself. It's as selfishly as much to prove to myself that I can do it, that I can bring this in some way into the world, even if no one ever sees it. The idea that I've at least brought it in some fashion into the world, that's why I'm doing it. Yeah, so I always feel weird. I always feel weird in ending these things like that, because like I'm trying to get that point across, but it always feels weird because it always feels like I've got this kind of built up this sort of speech, and now I've got to kind of bring it back. And so if you've got that doubt, if you have that mentality of, I'm doing this out of futility, if no one ever sees my work, does it matter? Understand that it matters. It does matter, because you're doing it for yourself. You are doing it perhaps only for yourself, and be okay with that. And if you view your work as something where if no one else ever sees it, then the work doesn't matter. You could be doing this thing for the wrong reason. You may not be approaching the writing process for the correct motivation, for the correct reasons. You might be going down the wrong path. Because at the end of the day, that's all you have is yourself. All you have is the work that you can do for yourself. That's all you can control. Anything else is you have no control over. I can put the best book out I could possibly ever write. I could write this book that I could think that would be this amazing story. Hey, maybe no one else finds it that way. Maybe no one else sees it that way. And so you only have yourself to sort of satisfy. You only have yourself to judge your work against. All right. So I'm going to leave it there with that. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, happy writing and stay safe.